Welcome to another edition of the Best Business Minds, where we interview business leaders and academics who write thought-provoking books. I'm Marc Kramer, serial entrepreneur, consults with family businesses and entrepreneurs. Currently, I'm typically in Vietnam as I teach at Vinh University, but today I'm actually back in Philadelphia area, visiting family and friends, and so I'm doing the show in Philadelphia for the month of February. Today's guest is Margot Machol Bisnow, author of the book Raising Entrepreneur: How to Help Your Children Achieve Their Dreams, 99 Stories from Families Who Did. I happen to love this book because my own kids are very entrepreneurial. My oldest daughter has their own marketing communications, public relations firm in Los Angeles, where our guest is from today. Margaret, could you please tell us a little bit about your background?
I'm excited to talk to you, Mark. And we're in LA this week. We're not here that much, but one of our sons lives here, so it's always fun for us to come out. I have what I do now has absolutely nothing to do with anything I've done in the rest of my life. I spent most of my career in international development. I got an MBA at Kellogg. I know you're into business schools. Came to DC for a year. My husband says my year is almost up. I spent a lot of time in government. I worked on Capitol Hill for a while on the banking committee. I was at the Treasury Department. I was at the Council of Economic Advisors. I was a federal trade commissioner in the 90s. I set up economic think tanks in Eastern Europe after the fall of communism. And I've done a bunch of other things. I was the first chief of staff at the Millennium Challenge Corporation, which gives large grants to the best performing small poor countries. Then for about 10 years, I did a newsletter in DC. And then about 10 years ago, I wrote this book. And the one you are mentioning is actually a second edition. So this is my passion now, is about talking to parent groups about raising entrepreneurial children.
Well, I think it's so important to encourage entrepreneurship. As I mentioned to you, here in Vietnam, I started the first high school entrepreneurship competition. So we start having them develop an entrepreneurial mindset. Even if they don't become entrepreneurs, it develops their own resilience and creative thinking, and also sets them up to figure out what do they really want to do when they grow up. And it doesn't have to be being an entrepreneur. So I really love this book and what you've done here. So let's start off with, you write that passion often shows up before talent or success. What are some of the early signs parents should look for that say this is more than a hobby?
So I don't know that it matters if it's a hobby or more than a hobby. I think what matters is that your child loves something and is working hard at it. And that may change over time. In fact, it's very likely to change over time. It's very unusual to find someone who has a passion in fourth grade that they still have as an adult. I mean, someone like John Chu was making movies in fourth grade. He just directed Wicked. That's very unusual. Most people have one passion, and then they get bored with it, and then they try a different passion, and then it morphs into a different passion. And that's fine. Nothing, they don't have to end up creating a career. As you're saying, you just want them to develop the characteristics of being entrepreneurial so that whatever they end up doing in life, it'll be good. So I don't think parents need to worry like, oh my God, is this going to be like something that's going to lead to a career? Is this a serious passion? It just matters that they've found something they love that they're working hard at.
Yeah, I agree with you. And they learn how to be big problem solvers, and they realize that anything can be overcome if they use their own creativity or leverage other folks. Many parents worry a child's passion is impractical. Gaming, music, YouTube, sports. Here in Asia, fashion design. How should they balance encouragement with realism?
Again, I think the important thing is if your child loves it, to tell them to go for it. And yeah, like I said, John Chu, at first his parents thought that was kind of odd that that's what he wanted to spend all his time on. It worked out for him. Um, Another example is a guy who's actually Vietnamese, born in Vietnam, came to the US as a refugee. Um, and his passion was video games, and he ended up becoming one of the lead producers on League of Legends. Um, when he first went back to Vietnam, it was to promote a League of Legends thing in a stadium with 100,000 cheering people. But the point is, it doesn't matter if it doesn't lead to a career because they're gaining skills, as you were talking about, Mark. They're gaining a way to deal with issues and with problems. And when they figure out something else, they can use all those skills. And I think it's really important, even though I'm saying, you want to raise an entrepreneur, not everyone wants to become an entrepreneur. It's really hard. It's really risky. You have to work really long hours with an uncertain payoff. The point is, if you're entrepreneurial, anything you do, you'll do better. Even if you're the school librarian, you know, if you're entrepreneurial and you're thinking outside the box and thinking, how can I get kids to love books and what kind of programs can I do for the kids with the books? That's fine. I mean, I think the thing is you enable your kids to have the traits that if they want to become an entrepreneur, they'll be able to. And if they don't want to become an entrepreneur, they'll have the traits to be more entrepreneurial.
Yeah, that's the whole focus of our university is exactly doing that. Um, from the families you've interviewed, what's the most surprising small childhood interest that later turned into a major entrepreneurial career?
Well, again, John Chu, who just developed who just produced Wicked, Thomas View, who did League of Legends and then made it into a Netflix show, Arcane. Um, but the other thing I would say is that many people who became successful entrepreneurs weren't doing little companies when they were young. A lot of them, for example, were doing sports. So, for example, Eric Ryan, his passion all growing up was sailing. He doesn't do anything with sailing today, but he'll tell you that the grit and focus and hard work and resilience and everything he learned sailing is what made him who he is. And like you, he's a serial entrepreneur. He started Method Products, which kind of revolutionized how we do household cleaning. And then he did Ollie, and then he did Welly. So he did, he's done like three different companies. And it's not that he became a sailor, it's that he learned how to become entrepreneurial.
In rule two, let your child learn to win and lose. And so many parents of the past generation have wanted every child to walk away with a trophy so they wouldn't feel bad because they felt bad, I guess, when they were younger and didn't walk away with anything. You emphasize that losing is essential. Why is failure such a stronger teacher for entrepreneurs than success?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked me that, Mark, because for me, it's the main difference between how kids will grow up to become entrepreneurs and those who won't is what their parents' attitude toward failure is. Because if you are afraid to fail, you're afraid to take risks because you don't want to fail. And if you're afraid to take risks, you cannot be an entrepreneur, period, flat out. Being a successful entrepreneur is risk taking. from the time you start your company and every time you iterate and change it and move in different directions. And if you're a kid who's afraid to fail, that's great. You can become a doctor or a lawyer, an accountant, an architect. None of them want to fail. But if you're brought up to understand that failure is how you learn and grow, it's you can become an entrepreneur and you'll become a risk taker and you'll become innovative.
How can parents distinguish between a child who's disengaged versus one who's simply wired differently?
Again, I would say it depends how hard they're working. Um, it doesn't it doesn't really matter it, what they're working on. What matters is that they're passionate about something, that they're excited to work on something. And if it's not history or math or whatever, that's okay. You want a child who's excited about something that they're doing. Maybe it's cooking, maybe it's video games, maybe it's sports, maybe it's music or art or acting or dancing or running for student government or playing chess or playing tennis or playing ping pong or whatever. It doesn't matter. You just have to be engaged with something if you want to be successful in life growing. I think that's the really important thing.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. It's when you have kids that don't have any passion for anything, they're rudderless. That's when you have a bigger concern. But if they find their passion in whatever that is, it makes it a lot easier as a parent to support them and for them to feel they found their own place, right?
Right. I couldn't agree with you more. And, some parents, their kids in high school, and they say, well, I don't really know what their passion is. And I'm like, okay, either you're not paying attention or else you've never given them the time and space to figure it out. You have them so programmed with the activities you think are important for them to get into the college you think they need to go to, that you've never actually given them the chance to explore the things that they like. You just have to watch your child and see what excites them, what turns them on, what gives, and let them pursue that.
Yeah, my youngest was always interested in movies and the theater, and I sent her to theater camp and paid for her to take television and film as a major at University of Arizona. And everybody was saying that's crazy. There's no money in it. It's a terrible industry. But I was just glad that she was excited about something, and she has been in many, many TV shows as an extra, but she's gotten a lot of face time. And so I'm thrilled for her. And she does another job that allows her to support herself while she's trying to make it in that industry.
That's great. That's just great.
I didn't want her on a psychiatrist couch wondering what if. And I think that's your biggest concern as a parent is that they never got their shot.
Right. No, 100%.
What advice do you give families who feel pressure from schools or relatives to prioritize grades above everything? And that happens throughout Asia.
Right. I know in my book, it was the Asian parents more than the other parents who really put pressure on their kids and who were the hardest sell. Um, uh, Back to John Chu's parents, I mean, his parents never were excited about, this movie thing when he was growing up. And it's one of my favorite stories in the book. His mom came into his room one night and he was supposed to be asleep and he was, doing a movie on his computer. And she said, put that nonsense away and go to sleep. You need to be ready for school. And he burst into tears and he said, you can't make me stop. It's what I love. It's what I want to do my whole life. And she said, go to sleep and we'll talk tomorrow. And she picked him up the next day and she'd been to the library and she'd gotten 10 filmmaking books. And she said, if you want to do it, be the best. Um,
That was good of her.
that was good of her. I would say to parents whose kids are not great students, let's say Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, they didn't graduate from college and they seem to have done okay. Um, I think a lot of parents are really back in the last century when the whole world was you had to get good grades in high school so you could get into a good college, and you had to get good grades in college, you had to graduate from college, and you had to get a job that you could keep your whole life. And those days are over. And I can just tell you one really quick story. I was giving a talk at a summit event, and a parent came up to me afterwards and he said, his son was at college. He'd started a little, company in his dorm room, and he just announced he was dropping out of college and he was going to move home and work on his little company. And his dad thought he was ruining his life, and he was so upset he hadn't talked to him in 3 weeks. And I called over this guy, Craig Clemens, I know, who's made like $1 billion with his company, and I know didn't graduate from college. And I said, Craig, you have a choice of hiring two kids. One of them started a little company, dropped out of college. After a couple years, he decided his company isn't really the answer, and he wants to work in a bigger organization to figure out, like, how to do it. The other kid stayed in college, wasn't motivated by anything, wasn't excited about anything, but somehow graduated. Which kid do you want? And he said, without blinking, I want to hire the first kid, and so do the other 100 entrepreneurs in this room.
Yeah.
And the dad was like, wow, okay, I'm going to go out and call my kid right away and tell him, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. I had a student, she wanted to be a fashion designer, and her parents would set fire to every one of her drawings, like, or her booklets, and told her that if she continued, she'd have to move out of the house. And that's how crazy it got, because they didn't feel like there was a future there. And yet thought she had great talent, and told her I'd be glad to meet with their parents to say, even if it didn't work out, she would have the skills to go and do something else in a totally different field, but they should let her pursue this.
Good for you.
You in Rule 4, mentors can be great. You talk about mentors as flame fanners. What makes a mentor transformative rather than just helpful?
I think the key is that there's someone who believes in you and they are in the area that you love. And so I think the key is to find, your kids, with any luck, will be involved in something that they love, that they're excited about, that they're passionate about, that they're working really hard at. And maybe the person in charge of that, there'll be a relationship, and it's someone that they can look up to, their coach or their music teacher, or whatever. I mean, I think they have to find their own mentor, but it can just be hugely important. There's this kid, Benny Blanco, who
Oh,
we've
yeah.
known, yeah, who we've known for a long time. I think he's had 11 Grammy nominations, and his albums have sold, 500 million albums, and he's gotten Songwriter of the Year several times. And I mean, he's famous more recently for marrying Selena Gomez, but he was not a good student. According to him, his teachers all found him annoying. And but he started being really interested in music, and his mom found him a music teacher. And the music teacher said, you're the most talented student I've ever had. And for Benny, this was so much more meaningful to him that someone who knew a lot about music believed in him, as opposed to like all his teachers who just thought he was annoying. Um, so I just think it's just so good to have somebody who believes in you, who's good at the thing you're good at, or you want to be good at.
Yeah, and I think those kinds of people, all of a sudden you think maybe I do have the talent for doing that. So there's no downside to encourage them, but you obviously you wouldn't tell somebody who can't sing at all that they could be a great singer, right?
Right. But they'll figure that out, you know,
On their own.
on their own.
Was there a mentor story that really surprised you during your interviews?
Well, I mean, I love that Benny Blanco story. Um, but I mean, so many of them, uh, told me that how important it was to just trying to think of another good one. to have somebody who, who believed in them. Um, Somebody else, they wanted to drop out of college and start their company. And one of their main mentors was this one professor, and his parents were like hysterical. And he said to his dad, like, talk to my professor. And the professor explained to him why this was a good thing for for him to do, that, he could always go back to grad school later. And it was, anyhow, he started Nantucket Nectars, and so it became successful. But it's important to have somebody, not your parents, who believes in you.
And so, how can parents proactively help their kids find the right mentor without forcing awkward networking, and also one that they can trust, considering we're like in an age of people worrying about adults interacting with their children?
Again, I mean, it's just you, if your kid does sports, maybe it's the coach. If your kid's in a band, maybe it's the band conductor. I mean, it's just whatever your kid is interested in. I mean, I wouldn't get too involved as a parent in trying to organize mentorship for your child. Your kids have to learn to figure stuff out for themselves. They have to they have to know that they have a problem to solve, and that they can do it. And I mean, I look at my older son, whose passion was tennis. I mean, the coach at his school was a nice guy, but not his mentor. The coach at the place he ended up training after school became one of the biggest mentors in his life. Um, I look at my younger son, who's a musician, and the band director was fabulous, and believed in him and let him conduct the entire school orchestra in a composition he'd written in front of the entire school before he graduated. So having somebody in the area you love that believes in you is just like it's the key. But they have to find it for themselves. I wasn't running around saying, "Ooh, let me find you a mentor in sports or in music."
In Rule 5, instill confidence. You say belief from a parent can shape a child's entire trajectory. Why is parental confidence so powerful psychologically?
Well, if the person who knows you the best doesn't think you can do it, why should you think you can do it? If the person closest to you, who knows you the most intimately, thinks you're not competent, thinks you can't succeed, why should you think you can succeed? I mean, every single entrepreneur in my book, and hundreds that I've talked to since, they all said they had someone who believed in them. Mostly it was someone in their family. They all said they could take risks because if they knew if they failed, they could go home, even if they never had to go home, but having that backstop there. They all had been told that failure is how you learn and grow. They all had been told not to worry, when things didn't go well. And, having someone who believes in you like that, who's there for you, who says, I know you can do it. It didn't work out this time, but it'll work out eventually, is just gives you so much faith. And I don't know if you saw the Roger Federer commencement speech at Dartmouth a year ago. It's
No.
on, it's on YouTube. I recommend it. It's phenomenal. But my favorite thing that he said was, he said, I won 80% of my matches. I lost 50% of the points I played in those matches. If you're focused on where you screwed up, you're never going to succeed. If your parents are focused on how you screwed up, you're never going to be confident. If your parents are like, what did you learn from it? That's great. Don't worry about it. You'll do better next time. Everybody makes mistakes. Roger Federer lost half of his points, the best tennis player, in 50 years.
Yeah, my dad was the same way. I was going to be a career sports writer, and I did write for 5 years. And he supported it all the time and helped edit my stuff, take it to the editor, and was costing him more money and gas to take it to the editor and drop it off. But he wanted to encourage it, and I thought I would be a career sports writer, and realized that that wasn't going to be really what I wanted to do. But I appreciate it and still do his support, backing 100%, and said there's always room for one more good one.
No,
I
that's
always
great.
remember him saying that.
That's so great. And then you were mentioning the kids getting trophies for not doing anything. I mean, that's another thing for parents. Kids know when they've done well. Kids know when they've worked hard. Kids know when they've succeeded on their own, and kids know when they've haven't succeeded because maybe they haven't worked hard enough. And when they're praised, no matter what they do, it's not helpful. And when the parents say it wasn't your fault, when it was their fault, it's not helpful. Kids appreciate honesty. Kids appreciate parents who say, maybe you should work harder, but I know you'll get there eventually, as opposed to, oh, it wasn't your fault. You got cheated out of that. Maybe I should talk to the teacher about getting a different grade. That is not helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you build because this goes along the lines of this. How do you build confidence without creating entitlement?
Well, again, I mean, I think you have to be proud of a child for how hard they've worked, and you have to let them know that you're not proud of them because they've won something or succeeded in something or gotten a good grade in something. You're proud of them for their effort, not their results. I'm not the first person to say this. People a lot smarter than me who've done lots of research show that when you're praised for effort and not results, you do a lot better, you work harder, and you're more successful in the long run.
Yeah, I agree with that. I tell my students the only thing in life they have control over is their effort.
Yes,
That's it.
right.
What everyday behaviors quietly communicate I believe in you as a child?
Again, it's the same thing, not just not to be angry or upset with them when they fail, not to be um, not to blame them when things don't go well, just to be supportive when things are good. And just like we're proud of how hard you're working. And everybody's got ups and downs, and resilience is the key, and you're going to get there eventually, and just kind of to be that bulwark.
In Rule 6, embrace adversity. Many of your entrepreneurs face serious hardship, loss, poverty, discrimination. What does adversity often produce? Why does adversity often produce resilience rather than defeat?
We've kind of talked about this a little, but when you teach a child that they can solve a problem, when you show them that they can be resilient and they can bounce back, it's going to help them enormously, especially if they want to become an entrepreneur. Nobody goes through life without adversity, especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur. Bad things happen constantly. And you have to know that you can recover from it. You have to know that you can fix it. You have to know that you can solve it. You have to know you have the ability to bounce back from it. Um, and you have to know that you have the tools to handle problems when they come up. A lot of these kids had terrible adversity in their families. Death of a parent, divorce, families losing all their money, families' businesses going bust or whatever. And these kids saw how their parents handled it, and they were shown that they could handle it.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. My father went bankrupt when I was 12, and it made me an adult very quick.
Yes.
And that changes everything for you. Seeing what's happened to your parents, either it can be I break you or it can make you stronger. As parents, our instinct is to protect our kids. How do we know when to step back and let them struggle?
I mean, I think that's tough. And when I look back at how I raised our kids, I think that's probably something I didn't do perfectly.
No
I
parent does.
I think my inclination was probably to go in and fix it maybe sooner than I needed to. But I sometimes, I mean, I just, if you thought like one kid was saying something wrong about your kid to the teacher or to the class, and you felt you needed to talk to the teacher, I think it's tough. I just think you have to be thoughtful about it and say, is this something they can solve on their own, or is this something they really need help with? And by the way, seeing your parents stand up for you when you really do need help is a very powerful thing for a child.
Is there a type of adversity that you think is especially formative for entrepreneurs?
No, all adversity, whether it's, you know, something watching your family go through something and having them be honest about it, or something, your own problems. I mean, kids getting bullied, kids having teachers who don't like them, kids, not making the team, kids getting hurt, um, they're losing, kids having a parent who's very sick. I mean, they all are issues you have to deal with, and you have to learn that you can deal with them and you can come out on top, and you have the tools to solve problems when they come up in your life, which they will.
Uh, I, the story always is said about how Michael Jordan got cut from his junior high school
Right,
basketball team, and that set him totally on fire. That after that, he was ultra competitive for the rest of his life.
right,
And so I guess, that's an example of somebody who took that and said, I'm not going to quit basketball. I'm going to come and become the best basketball player in the world.
right.
And that changed everything for him. Uh, you in Rule 7, nurture compassion. You connect entrepreneurship with empathy, not just ambition. Why is compassion such an important entrepreneurial trait today?
Thank you for asking. I think it's so key for so many reasons. So the first is that these entrepreneurs were all raised to look at situations and think, okay, this is a problem. How can I make it better? And essentially, this is how you'll start your company. You get to know something really well, and you think, this is a problem, how this works. I think I could make this better. And so part of it is a way that parents raise their kids to look at the world and say, there's a problem. What could I do to fix it? So it's both exposing them to problems, but also it being hopeful that problems can be solved. Um, and of course, some of it's like hunger, um, and some of it's just with something that doesn't work well. I mean, you know, some of these entrepreneurs ended up, like Charity Water. He decided he was going to try to bring clean water to the world. Um, Blake Mykowski with Tom's Shoes decided to try to get shoes to kids who didn't have them. Um, but other, Eric Ryan, who I mentioned before, who started Method Products, just thought like, why is it when you go into the grocery store, every cleaning supply is in an ugly container and it smells bad and it's full of like ugly, horrible chemicals? Isn't there like a more sustainable, ecological way I could produce a cleaning supply? So it can be both a sort of a nonprofit kind of a thing that you want to solve. And it can be a for-profit thing that you want to solve, but it's a way of looking at the world and saying, there's a problem and I would like to fix it. And the other part of the answer to your question, Mark, is that, you know, if your goal in life is just to make money, I think that wears thin after a while. And I mean, a lot of people like it proves empty once you've got the money. I mean, then what? It just can't sustain you forever. But if you actually feel you're making a difference in the world, um, making people's lives better, it, you're much more willing to work long hours and work hard and pour yourself into it because it's so much more satisfying.
I agree with you totally about that, and that's why I do the stuff that I do. How can families intentionally teach kids to care about others while encouraging big dreams?
I mean, I think every every parent in this book did it differently. A lot of these parents were better than I was about um, volunteering, um, giving stuff away, working in, you know, homeless shelters or whatever. But just teaching your kids, like, when you're done with your toys, we're going to wrap them up and we're going to bring them to the homeless shelter. Yes, I love that you have a job. 10% of it has to go to a charity of your choice or to helping somebody. And so they were very thoughtful about doing that.
Um, you suggest in Rule 8, be a great family. You suggest strong families create strong founders. What specific family habits showed up again and again in your research?
So I think this is so funny because before I started interviewing everyone for my book, my kids said, Mom, you should write down like what you think, are the rules that families should follow to raise entrepreneurial kids, because both my kids are entrepreneurial. And so I wrote it down, and it turned out none of them were right. So, um, so my big one was like we had to eat dinner together every night as a family. And
I never
someone
thought that.
And someone said, like, what time do you eat? And I said, when the last person walks in the door.
Hmm.
Very few of these people ate dinner together every night as a family. I mean, it's um, so I mean, I think the thing about being a great family is that the kids have to know that no matter what happens, their parents love them and their parents are there for them. There's no one answer to how much time do you have to spend with them? What kind of vacations do you have to take with them? I mean, all of the, I would say that as long as your family loves each other, supports each other, is there for each other, cares for each other, um, a lot of these people had parents who worked a lot and they just didn't see them as much, but when they saw them, they were there 100%, totally present, totally involved, and they always knew they were there if they needed them. Um, I always tell women that have children that you have three choices. You can not work and feel guilty, you can work full time and feel guilty, or you can work part time and feel guilty. Um, So I would just say you just got to do your best and what works for your family. It's going to be different for every family depending on, the parent situation.
I think being present when you're there is probably the most important thing, right?
Right. No phones at the dinner table, Dad.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't do that at all. How does unconditional support differ from overprotectiveness, especially the term helicopter parents?
Right. Again, I think it's just we know you're going to fail. Failure is how you learn and grow. We're here for you when it doesn't work out. And we love you. We believe in you. We know you're going to get there eventually. And you definitely don't want to be a helicopter parent. It's the worst thing. And these parents who are like micromanaging their kids' lives and telling their kids what activities to take. And it's just, I feel so bad for these kids. I always thought about do you remember the scandal when the parents like were paying somebody else to take
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
college admission scandal. And so many people were like, oh my God, these rich kids with these parents will do anything. And I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad for these children because what their parents were saying to them was, if you want to be a success in life, you have to get into this school. And if the school knew the real you, they wouldn't want you. And so we have to pretend you're somebody that you're not, because otherwise you can't be successful. I can't think of a worse message to tell a child. What you want to say is, you don't have to go to that school. You need to go to a school where you can thrive, where the school understands how cool you are and what your skills are and what you bring to the table. And we're going to find that school for you. That's what you want to say, not the other.
Yeah, you're setting them up for failure. I was a trustee at a university, a well-known university, and they told me, "Oh, my daughter didn't have to do anything, just apply. She's in." I said, "But what if she's not? What if this is not a good fit for her? Don't worry about it." And so I told them no. I said she's got to apply and get in like everybody else. And so I took her for a tour. And she decided, I don't think this university is right for me. And she got accepted to a reasonably good university, but I wasn't going to go and rig the game for her because I felt that was going to be worse for her. I
We're
don't understand when these parents do that. I think it makes it infinitely worse for them when they topple over because either it wasn't a good fit or they weren't up to the academic challenge, whatever that may be.
Absolutely. If I have something in the book that I really like, I say that answers your question. I say the parents gave their children the following messages. We love you, we trust you, we believe in you, we support you in whatever you want to do. We love that you found your passion. We encourage you to pursue it. We know you'll do great things. We'll always be here for you. Don't worry if you make mistakes, you'll learn from them. And anyhow, they're bumps on the road to your success. We're excited to follow you on your journey. We can't wait to see everything you're going to accomplish.
Absolutely. What did your parents do with you?
Oh, well, my parents were very academic. My dad was a professor. Um, but I mean, they said I could do what I wanted. They wanted me to be happy.
I mean, they came from a different generation where
Right.
this wasn't really thought about a lot.
Right. And where it was a different world, like we were saying earlier, like you really needed to graduate from college when I did. Um, you know, it's just a different world today. When I
Yeah.
started my nonprofit to set up economic think tanks in Eastern Europe, like I used to um, type something up and fax it to my old secretary, and she would type it up better and put it in an envelope and send it back. It was like, it was a different world.
Yeah, for sure. I graduated college in 82. And back then, the idea of even being an entrepreneur was frowned upon, and that you were supposed to go work for AT&T and IBM. And if you were a job hopper, that's what you were called back then, if you switched jobs more than once in your career, right?
Right.
And
Isn't
now
that
companies look at it totally different. They want to know you've had maybe 10 different experiences. And
right?
if you only stay with one company, they think that you're less valuable, that loyalty doesn't mean as much as getting experiencing different cultures.
I know. I mean, I think how many jobs my husband had, I mean, he was in a law firm for like a year and it was like, I hate it.
Mhm.
So should he have stayed for 40 more years being unhappy? No, I'm so
No.
glad he left.
Yeah, I totally agree about that. Many of your in Rule 9 show them there's something bigger. And you talked a little bit about this. Many of your entrepreneurs had a sense of purpose beyond money. Where does the bigger vision usually come from?
So this is one of the things that really surprised me the most in my interviews, how many of them actually did have a belief in something bigger than themselves, how many of them felt they were put on the earth to make a difference, and they wanted to make a difference, and they want to make the world a better place, and they want to do something that improves people's lives. And a lot of them, it was uh, organized religion in their families and parents who were devout. And a lot of them, it was just, sort of a intense morality um, and a belief that you have to be a good person kind of thing. But they all thought that they weren't here just to look out for number one.
Yeah, I've dealt with thousands of entrepreneurs, and very few of them started their company with the idea of becoming rich.
Right.
They wanted to impact the world, change things, improve
Exactly.
things. And I think if you start with the idea of making money, you're going to be really disappointed because only 1% or less of these entrepreneurs has a real makes, a fortune or, significant money that you don't have to work. So you better like what you're doing, and it can't be about money or you're not going to survive.
Absolutely. And I mean, I would say every entrepreneur said to me, if you love what you're doing, you're not working. If you don't love what you're doing, you're going to be miserable. You have to find something that you love. You have to find something you believe in. You have to find something you care about. And every one of these companies, I mean, like I look at Sweet Green, they wanted to have a healthy, low cost, fast way of eating. I mean, they wanted to change the way people could eat. There was nothing back then other than like McDonald's if you wanted to grab something quick and cheap. Um, lots of you can okay, they've made a lot of money, but that wasn't the point. The,
Yeah.
that wasn't the point. Blake Mykowski with Tom's wanted to give these kids shoes and thought, I just don't want to spend my life with a nonprofit trying to raise money. How about if I, give a pair away for every pair I sell? And, I mean, he's given away like a billion pairs of shoes and he made a lot of money doing it. But and by the way, he started the whole one for one thing, which is now huge. I mean, I think that whole one for one, I mean, so many things. Warby Parker, I buy my glasses and they give sight to someone in need. Bombas, I buy my socks and they give a pair to someone in need. I mean, it's become just a huge thing. And I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's not all about money. How can parents expose kids to the world in ways that expand perspective and ambition?
Well, I think you want to expose kids to the world, not just to expand ambition, but more for the perspective, more so that they know that there are other cultures and other ways of doing things. We were lucky we traveled extensively all over the world with our kids from a pretty young age. It's my passion in life. Um, and it's eye-opening for them. They go to Africa and they see kids walking 2 miles to school by themselves, carrying their books and everything, and they're happy and they're smiling and they're so thankful that they get to go to school. And then you go back to your expensive private school where the parents are picking them up in the carpool line and the kids are all in a bad mood. And you're like, what's wrong with this picture? Um, um, and a lot of parents traveled with their kids. A lot of parents who weren't able to do that still found ways for their kids to study overseas, to do programs like you're talking about that you are able to do with a lot of your kids where, where that you work with to, maybe internships or, various high school programs or college programs or entrepreneurship programs or something where you can go live overseas for a year or let them travel for a year on their own, after high school or something. Just let them go, let them see the rest of the world.
I agree with you. I bought my ex-wife was from Panama. I bought a home in Panama just so my kids could be exposed to their culture, to my
That's
wife's culture, and get to meet people from around the world. I think that's a problem in America, is that Americans don't travel enough to see that the rest of the world is just as smart, if not smarter, and great ideas can come from other places.
I couldn't agree with you more. A friend of mine in DC who started a wonderful nonprofit in DC, Good Projects, working to get kids out of poverty. And he went to Africa and started a school in Nairobi in the slums. And I visited it last time I was in Nairobi. And I mean, I don't think Americans can even imagine what the conditions are. I mean, it's like near kind of sewage in the streets. It's like metal walls. It's, you know, super cramped, tight with like 15 kids in this little teeny space, for each classroom. And these kids are so happy. They're so thrilled that they're there. It's, I mean, every kid in America should see this.
I I think the same thing all the time. We took our kids to Europe. We always took them. And I said I would pay for any kind of travel when they were in college, because the more you're exposed to, the more open-minded you are, and the more you're willing to work for the common good with other people. Why do you think purpose-driven entrepreneurs tend to sustain energy longer than profit-driven ones?
I mean, it's kind of what we were talking about before. If your only goal is to make money, it gets kind of stale after a while. And I mean, once you have enough money that you've got the big house and the fancy car, and the fancy watch, like, then what? Like,
Yeah, there's an entrepreneur in Philadelphia. Her name is Yasmin Mustafa, and she started a company called Roar for Good, which her original product was a pin for women to wear because she experienced all this violence toward women in Central and South America. And she created this pin that women could push a button and let everybody know where they were and that they were in trouble. And 37,000 fathers like me bought it, but the daughters didn't like it and thought it was ugly. So she pivoted to hotel maids, then the pandemic hit. Then she pivoted again to first responders and a lot of others. And that took off. And now the business is successful. And she raised $15 million additionally from what she had raised before. And here, this took place over a decade that she
right.
never gave up this dream of making women safe. And I thought, wow, how amazing is that? That for 10 years, she just kept her head down and kept moving forward.
But that's what we were talking about. I mean, the whole idea of resilience and keeping going and being willing to take risks and being willing to pivot and, being aware when things aren't working and trying to look around and see what other ways you could do things. I mean, you've just described a typical entrepreneur experience.
Yep. So we're on rule 10, lead by following. Lead by following is such a counterintuitive parenting phrase. What does it really look like day to day?
What we were saying at the very beginning of the conversation is that you want a kid who's found something that gives them joy. You want to raise a child who's got a passion, and you want to let them know how proud you are that they're working so hard at something they love. And it doesn't have to be the same thing from the time they're 7 until they're 27. It can change over time. It can morph. It can just switch. Um, but there has to be something that they chose that they love. And the thing is for parents to see the joy in their child's eyes and then encourage it and tell them how proud you are that they're working so hard. Both our kids, I sort of referred to this, had passions growing up outside of school. They were both areas that my husband and I knew nothing about. It's only afterwards that I've looked back and I've realized, wow, it was actually a great thing that they found something that they loved that we couldn't help them with, because I'm a really helpful person. And if it had been something I'd known anything about, I'd have been all over them with advice. But one son played tennis and one son wrote music. And we couldn't help them because we don't play tennis and we don't write music. And it turned out to be a great thing. Um, my older son fell in love with tennis when he was about 12. He lost every match for years. He'd walk off the court and say, I know what I did wrong. I'll beat him next time. He fought his way up to 35 in the country. And he says that even though he still plays tennis, he doesn't do anything with it professionally, but he says that grit and focus and resilience and determination that he learned in tennis is what's made him so successful today.
What does he do today?
Well, he's done several things. He started an organization called Summit or Summit Series, which is conferences of young entrepreneurs. He started that when he was like 22. And then in 2013, Summit ended up buying Powder Mountain in Utah um, to develop it. And then he realized that it's really hard to run a ski resort. And anyhow, he sold it a couple years ago to Reed Hastings from Netflix. And now he's doing something that I'm not sure I can talk about yet in Miami that he's super excited about. Plus, he's a partial investor in this safari lodge in Kenya. Um, and he wasn't a great student. He dropped out of college after 2.5 years, and he's done really, really well. Our younger son, we'd signed him up for a summer of sports camps when he was 13, I think. He broke his leg like the first week. We were desperately looking around for something for him to do, and everything was booked. And I found a camp where they were writing music on the computer, and I said, well, you're going to this. And that was it. He wrote 300 songs before he graduated from high school. Uh,
Wow.
um, and he's done really well as a musician. He's got a band, Magic Giant, and then he and his wife have started doing sort of indie um, music also. That's called Somewhere in Between. So they've both done really, really well. And neither of them were academic superstars, but they both found passions. We saw that they were passionate. We were proud of them for how hard they were working, even though they weren't great at, history. Um, I can think of so many other examples of kids who, you know, ended up their parents, they found something they loved and that they were passionate about, and that a lot of other people thought they were nuts. And their parents said, go for it. We're proud of you. And I mean, I can give you lots of examples. I mean, another quick one would be Bert Jacobs' Life is Good. He and his brother were selling T-shirts out of the back of their truck for like 5 years, not making any money. And all their friends thought they were crazy. And their parents were like, whatever makes you happy. And then they finally figured out the Life is Good idea. And, it's taken off. It's been very successful. So I can give you tons more examples of
So
like,
here's my last question for you. If a parent listening today feels that they've already made mistakes, what would you say to give them hope?
I would say nobody's perfect. And we've just said, like, you should tell your kids not to be afraid to fail. The best thing is to be vulnerable and to say, hey, I was wrong, and let's start over. I mean, just like John Chu's mom, who She said, you know, if you want to be a filmmaker, be the best. I mean, it was different from what she'd been saying before. A lot of these parents, at first, they were horrified. Like, you know, Thomas View's mom was horrified that he wanted to drop out of college and pursue video gaming and electronic arts. But eventually they're like, you know, if you're happy, we're proud of you. And the kids know that their parents love them, and the kids, you know, that their parents are there for them, and that you can only do your best. Nobody's perfect.
That's what I find also all the time. I so enjoy talking to you, especially being a parent myself and working with parents every day. I thought the book was great, a must read for parents, not just if their kids want to be entrepreneurs, just to be successful in life. I think the book was great.
Thank you so much.